today. Hopefully we're going to see an improvement this afternoon, but what was clear is that it was pretty challenging if you were offline even a small margin.
Yeah, the Supersport bikes were always likely to find a lot of lap time. Brand new surface track here. They were the first ride.
It does look as though that number one plate is going to be slipping away from him, although he had intimated that even if he were world champion this season, he might prefer not to have the pressure of the number one again next year.
Yeah, I think if Toprak had gone back-to-back, we would have seen him back on a 54 next year. Looks like we're going to see that anyway, but for Toprak, it's all about trying to pick up as many wins as possible, and you would imagine he's thinking more about win bonuses rather than a championship bonus at this stage of the season. But for Toprak, it is a case of just going out and doing what he's been doing for the second half of this year.
Yes, you're definitely thinking like a rider there as we see the hashtag the return in the offing this weekend.
Yeah, and it's a good story to see that Alvaro, after 2 years at Honda, has been able to come back and be so strong this year, learn the lessons from his previous campaign with Ducati, and he's been the rider that's made the difference for them. That bike's been very competitive in recent years. Obviously, Scott Redding's been able to finish second and third in the World Championship, but Alvaro Bautista, low grip track surface as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves and what we're able to do. The one problem that a lot of riders are going to have here this weekend is overtaking isn't going to be easy. It's a very narrow line. If you're off the line, there's absolutely no grip out there. You might as well be on glass. So that means that for the rider that's in front, they've got that advantage. So you've got to hit the front and then stay in front, and that's obviously a bit easier if you've got that straight line speed.
And little doubt about it, he is still feeling discomfort. The BMW team are talking in advance of this round about adjusting his riding position slightly to give him more comfort riding. So he's still riding round those injury issues, and hardly surprising given the choke that he missed in pre-season and obviously the opening round, and then 4 rounds subsequently to that, on both occasions probably coming back prematurely, although that is the custom for world.
Pretty rapidly this weekend.
Well, as always, we have pit reporter standing by with information. Anthony Nelson, what have you got for us?
Very quick update, Alex, just from both Ducati guys. Albert Bautista and Michael Rinaldi leave the pit lane a couple of minutes ago, both left on the super soft SCX tyre. Now, this is no big surprise in normal circumstances, but given what we've spoken about with the tarmac this weekend and how it's bedded in, how it's also quite aggressive on a lot of the tyres, it'll be interesting to see if this is just for a quick run or if it's just assessing whether it will be able to be used for the longer races for both riders.
Thank you for that, Anthony. Yes, as far as this weekend is concerned, Pirelli sent their tyre allocation back in July, determined what they were going to be freighting out here to Indonesia, and obviously the track resurfacing has taken place since then, so it is really a very new, very green circuit. But as far as free practice 2 is concerned, the first lap times just coming in, and plenty of them already faster than the riders went earlier on today. Toprak Razgatlioglu has just set his first flying lap of free practice 2, and it's a 1 minute 35.727, so that's over a second faster, Steve, than he went in FP1.
Yeah, 1.2 faster than he went in FP1, so immediately we're able to see that the grip level's better out there. Like Anthony said as well, a lot of riders are going to go out there on the X tyre, the softest compound tyre. You'll be able to spot that one with the red dashes on the rear tyre, and that offers an awful lot more grip. So the teams are going to use this session now to really evaluate whether or not that tyre is going to be the tyre they want to use in race conditions as well. Obviously very hot track temperatures here, 62 degrees at the minute, so that means that the tyre is obviously going to put through a lot of strain around this track.
Jonathan Ray making his way straight back in to the pits. Icolette Lona and Michael van der Mark also. We saw van der Mark in the pit box, not leaving the garage just yet. So those are the riders in the early stages who are going to set their first flying lap times of free practice 2 for now, as we ride on board with Alvaro Bautista.
Yeah, through the final sector of the lap here, down into 16 and then the left-hander turn 17. This is obviously one of the most important corners of the track because it leads on to the longest straight. So if you're able to exit this corner well, you might give the setup a move in.
It's been a rather downhill slope since then from him, dropping back in the championship standings, having sat in 4th right the way until Manico. He's now down in 6th position. Anthony mentioned that fight to be in the top 5, but at the moment just to hold on to 6th position is going to be something of a challenge, with Axel Bassani on better form than he is, frankly, in recent rounds.
Yeah, Bassani with the Ducati's been able to have some really strong results in the last few rounds. Obviously his scrap last time out in Argentina with this man Jonathan Ray, see a big moment for Ray there. That looks gets down through turn 3, but for Locatelli, it's about trying to hold on to that top 6 spot. But interesting there from what Paul said about only staying out on one tyre for the morning session. We did see quite a few riders at the end of the session throw in a new tyre and try and set a fast lap time. Locatelli set his fastest lap right at the end of the session as well, and that was with that worn tyre. So now in this session, he's obviously been able to make a big step forward with his lap time immediately, having gone out with a fresh tyre.
Yes, it gives us a more representative idea of what's going to be going on, although still the lap times are improving quite dramatically. Xavi Forres has just crossed the line and set at 1 minute 35.872. That's good enough for third fastest in this afternoon session.
Yeah, and you can see here with Jonathan Ray just how one line it is around some parts of this track. He was behind Garrett Gerloff there, and he had to just another little bit of a bobble there through turn 17 for Ray. But you have to just create a little bit of space almost between yourself and some of the other riders if you want to try and set a fast lap time, because overtaking is so tricky right now because the line is so narrow. There's only been 3 sessions before this to lay down some rubber, so it's a real challenge for riders.
That's going to be another incident here, and this time it's Iker Lecuona who has gone down. He had just set his new personal best time.
And that looks like a very big crash. We saw the rear wheel looked like it had lost its tyre as well, so that's usually a big indication of a big impact there. And the red flag's out once again. Yes,
another red flag then in FP2. I think because the commentator might have applied there, because right at the start I said it had been a drama-free FP1 and a quiet session. The medical personnel are straight onto the scene as Iker Lecuona has gone down heavily there.
Yeah, I did talk to a few riders about the changing track conditions, and they all said the same thing, that at the start of this session you're going to see some crashes because everyone's going to push on a little bit harder, and once you start pressing on you're going to be a little bit offline, and then you can have some big crashes. And for Lecuona, they're just asking a little bit too much of the Honda through that last corner, and big impact for him, so hopefully Iker's okay after that.
Yes, the rear wheel completely destroyed, and that gives an indication of the severity of the impact at very least.
One thing that you notice, especially when we go winter testing, it's the only time that I really get to go out stand trackside, and it's when you see a big crash, you suddenly realise and remember the forces that go through these riders, the bikes, and just how big a crash can be. And that's a big crash there. We're not used to seeing high sides of that nature anymore, electronics being what they are. But around a low grip track like this, when you start to push on, you can have big incidents like that. So Iker, he's at least able to get onto his knees there and get his helmet off, and just a big impact there, so it'll take him a minute just to catch his breath, but hopefully he's not too badly hurt after that.
Well, again, we catch our breath in free practice too. Iker Lecuona had just set a new personal best lap time of 1 minute 35.766, and visibly he is in discomfort there walking away, the grimace on his face. So pretty brave here that he is walking away, but he is clearly very uncomfortable indeed.
Yeah, looking at Iker there, you're not going to be too surprised if we're going to see him sit out some of the action for the rest of the weekend, and that's a big loss for Honda potentially. Even just to lose the track time in this session is a big loss for them, because they've got that new bike out there effectively with the super concession parts as well. We heard from Leon Camier in free practice 1 about the changes that Honda were looking to make just to try and help that bike to turn a little bit better, but certainly for them, they need as much data as they can get.
Right, the pecking order on the left-hand side of your screen is where we're at as we pause for a second time for a red flag. Jonathan Ray, your fastest man, at 1 minute 35.654, ahead of top-ranked Ralph Gagliocchio by just under a tenth of a second. Iker Lecuona, a tenth of a second down on Ray, and Xavi Forres having just been displaced by the number 7 Honda to 4th position, 2/10 of a second slower than Jonathan Ray. Strong start to this session for Xavi Forres. Philip Ertl with another strong start, so plenty of Ducatis up there in the top positions this afternoon thus far.
Yeah, just to go back to the Lecuona crash as well, I think it gives you a really good indication of just how difficult it is for the riders. In conditions like this, we often think of the track as being like a wet track, but it's even more tricky than that whenever it's dirty like this, because if you're just that little step off
second slower than he'd gone previously in FP2. Carl Smith, in fact, is the only rider who hasn't improved his time this afternoon, as Bautista takes 9/10 out of his previous best in FP2, 1 minute 34.748. So a big improvement there from Alvaro Bautista, and that's the perfect opportunity to head down to pit lane with Anthony.
Thanks, Alex. I'm down here with the pilot of Anthony Ducati, sporting director. Well, first, congratulations on everything last weekend. A phenomenal season, culminating in that clean sweep of titles with Pecco Bagnaia winning the Riders' title. I faced a very similar situation this weekend with Alvaro, and very close to a dream week overall.
Yeah. Well, obviously, last Sunday we achieved a very important result, not only because it's the second riders title won by a Ducati rider, but because it's the first time in modern history that an Italian rider clinched the MotoGP championship on an Italian bike. You know, we have to go back to 15 years ago with Giacomo Agostini and D'Agusto, so it was an additional pride for us to have achieved this result after coming back from minus 291 until winning in Valencia. Now we're here, obviously. It's the first match point in a way for Alvaro here in the weekend in Mandalika. Let's see, obviously not for granted that he will manage, because still we know Toprak and Johnny are very strong, but there is a good chance to manage this advantage of 82 points. So let's see if we can finally also get back the World Superbike Riders title that we missed since 2011.
Even with an 82-point gap, it's slightly less nervous perhaps than last weekend, but even so important to win the title in style here in Mandalika. How have you seen the action so far with Alvaro and with Michael as a teammate near Ruben?
Actually, we're doing pretty well.
We've never a lot of damage done to that bike, so a bit of work for the team to do, and certainly for Lecco, and we'll wait and see what the updates are for him. But he's missed out on a lot of track time now in this session. That's going to put him on the back foot for the rest of the weekend. Even with that injury, it's good, or the impact from that crash, it's going to be something for him to keep an eye on. But Alvaro Bautista, you can see there just chatting to his crew chief, Julio Nava, and very consistent times on his second stint in this session. So from that second red flag.
Yes, clearly one time standing out, the 1 minute 34.428, that has put him second fastest. The other lap times around a similar ballpark in the 35s, but the pace certainly there for Alvaro Bautista, and we've said it already, there's plenty of Ducatis up towards the front this afternoon. Bassani third, Rinaldi fifth, Boris we've already talked about up in eighth, and Ertl also in the top 10, and looking set to improve further still on this latest lap. So although this wasn't necessarily a circuit where everyone said Ducati was going to go well, the track conditions at the moment might be playing into their hands.
Yeah, we know that in the past at places like Misano, whenever we've had very high track temperatures, that's where Ducati was not. Once the track temperature comes up, they're still able to generate grip out there. Kawasaki really struggle when the grip falls down as the track temperature comes up, they start to really struggle to get that bike turned, and certainly for the likes of Kawasaki, the higher the temperatures go here, the more likely they'll be to be thinking, you know what, this is going to be a tricky one. But you're also going to be at a point where it's just so hot that every bike's going to struggle out there. We saw track temperatures yesterday of 67 degrees in the afternoon, so there's literally no bike or tyre that's designed for that specific condition in World Championship racing, because you've got to be able to make a bike that works for Assen in April, and
flying laps, his final stint of free practice 2, as we see Michael Ruben Rinaldi cross the line. New personal best from him, 1 minute 34.590. That's half a second down on Toprak Razgat Dioglu, who we pick up here in the wake of Garrett Gerloff heading down towards turn number 1. And we'll see, didn't look like Toprak could quite get alongside Gerloff in the braking zone.
Yeah, and I think that's a good indication of just how tricky it is when you're that little bit offline. Toprak not even trying to get alongside Garrett Gerloff despite having to run down the start-finish straight.
Yes, we'll see if that continues to be a factor over the course of this weekend. Track position could be all important here in Mandalika. Final 4 minutes of free practice 2 then. Toprak Razgat Dioglu, the man to beat, the fastest time of the day for P1, 1 minute 34.088. Alvaro Bautista over 0.3 of a second slower than that. And their championship rival Jonathan Ray currently down in 9th position, but set to make a major improvement here.
Yeah, and for Bautista, he's given up pretty much all that lap time in Sector 1 as well, on a pretty consistent basis. Toprak's had a few tenths of a second on him.
Jonathan Ray, meanwhile, making his way through the final sector, the long, tightening pair of corners, turns 15 and then 16, and then through the left-hander at 17 now, and then driving towards the line. Short run to the finish line to set his fastest lap of the day so far, 1 minute 34.595. So just 0.005 of a second slower than Michael Ruben Rinaldi, half a second slower than Toprak Razgat Dioglu. The top three in the championship are now in the top four positions this afternoon in FP2. Xavi Forés set to make an improvement. He goes up to sixth fastest, sub 1 minute 35 for the first time this afternoon for the number 12 Barni Ducati. 134.871 for Xavi Forés. That puts him up ahead of Axel Bassani once again. Forés is going to have plenty of cause for optimism ahead of competitive action tomorrow here in Indonesia. Scott Redding crossing line, first flying lap of his final stint at 135.6, so he's still 1.5 seconds slower than Wsbk Mandalika and still outside of those top 10 positions as well.
Yeah, just looking at the timesheets as well, Toprak's been able to complete 25 laps in this session as well, so good information being gathered there by the Yamaha rider. Most riders in and around 90.
That of Bautista comes to the line and sets a 1 minute 33.626, and that really is excellent from Alvaro Bautista. 4.5 tenths of a... It's been a decent afternoon for Yamaha as well. Redding down in 10th position, and the Hondas as well, particularly of course because of Ikalakwona's crash. Hopefully he is okay and will resume when we get underway with racing tomorrow afternoon here in Indonesia. Final lap over the line from Andrea Locatelli. It's not going to be an improvement for him, and
so round about a second between them. Certainly in the Super Bowl session you'll see that gap close right up as well, but for Alvaro Bautista, we'd always got his first opportunity to win the World Championship
of FP2. Combined times obviously identical to those we saw in free practice 2. In terms of your stint summary then, Alvaro Bautista, longer run, the third stint of that session for him, and the final stint seeing him set his fastest time, that 1 minute 33.626. Far faster than he went on any of his other laps. You see 1 minute 34.6 is there on that final stint. Toprak's third stint, a nice long one for him, 1 minute 34.088, but still setting lap times in the 34s right at the end of that stint. So some signs of strong long run pace for Wsbk Mandalika. 4 shorter stints for Michael Ruben Rinaldi. He sets his final time at the last as track conditions gradually improve, 1 minute 34.590 from him.
20 laps for their mileage in this session.
And his teammate Andrea Locatelli coming on strong in the final minutes of this session as well, as he bids to move up into the top 10. Currently down in 15th place is Andrea Locatelli this afternoon. From Paul Denning talking in terms of a slightly different structure to his Friday and to his weekend, so we'll see how that plays out in the final minutes of FP2. Locatelli coming towards the line here to move P7, new personal best sub 1 minute 35, so that's 7 riders now who've gone into the 1 minute 34s, and Alvaro Bautista might be about to become the first rider to go into the 1 minute 33s if he can hook it up through this final sector, because he's a tenth of a second better than where Toprak Wsbk Mandalika was on his fastest lap at the same point, and he is coming through the final 2 turns now. Jonathan Ray directly in front of him on track as a bit of a reference point, too far away to give him any slipstream advantage or anything like that.